There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome to NTD and Good Morning.
Good morning. Here are our top stories. A second hostage found dead near Gaza's largest hospital, and videos of what the IDF uncovered so far while searching the complex.
Hamas says the terrorist group is willing to release tens of hostages in exchange for a short-term truce and prisoners. Would Israel take the deal? A security analyst weighs in.
A Palestinian-led movement is gaining traction on college campuses as issues of anti-Semitism are on the rise across the country.
Republican Congressman George Santos is not seeking re-election next year. That's after a new report asserts there is overwhelming evidence showing he broke the law.
The costs of illegal immigration hitting New York City hard. Mayor Eric Adams calls the budget cuts to police, education, and more the most painful exercise of his professional life.
Online retail giant Amazon is pushing its way into the auto sales market in a new partnership with a South Korean automaker.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Welcome from me as well. Today is Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. November 17th.
Yes, happy Friday. Hope you all have a good weekend. And first, our hearts go out to the families of the hostages who have been found.
That is true. Well, let's hope that all the remaining hostages will be recovered and brought home safely, but also I think we will hear some more updates about the negotiations today. But first, in our top news is Israel says the body of a second Israeli, just as we have mentioned, was found near Al-Shifa hospital. She's been identified as 19-year-old Noah Marciano, a corporal in the Israel Defense Forces.
Israel's military says her body has been transferred to Israeli territory. The IDF said yesterday it had found the body of a 65-year-old Israeli woman who was kidnapped.
The IDF has released a new video to back up its claim that Hamas used Gaza's largest hospital as a command center. Here's the story.
A Hamas tunnel below Gaza's largest hospital. Nearly 48 hours after Israeli forces raided Al-Shifa hospital, these are the first images of what the Israeli military says is an operational tunnel shaft on the grounds of the hospital complex.
It is here in Shifa Hospital where Hamas operates some of its command and control cells.
For weeks, Israeli officials have laid the groundwork for an operation targeting Shifa Hospital, claiming Hamas operates a massive underground complex below it. And in recent days, the U.S. has also backed up those allegations.
One thing has been established is that Hamas does have headquarters, weapons, materiel below this hospital.
As Israeli special forces continue searching the hospital complex, they are also uncovering weapons and ammunition.
There is an AK-47, there are cartridges, ammo, there are grenades in here,
which the Israeli military calls concrete evidence that Hamas used Gaza's largest hospital to wage war. Near the hospital, Israeli officials also say they found the body of 65-year-old Yehudi Defies, who was among those abducted on October 7th.
The body of Yehudit, may her soul rest in peace, was recovered by our forces. The 7th Brigade, which was scanning the area nearby the Al-Shifa hospital, recovered her body in one of the homes during the scanning. Near her body, we found bodies of terrorists who were holding Yehudit.
Israel's decision to send troops into a hospital has drawn fierce criticism, with the UN's aid chief saying he is appalled by the raid. President Biden standing by Israel's actions.
It's not like they're rushing in the hospital, knocking down doors and, pulling people aside and shooting people indiscriminately.
Amid the fighting, the families of hostages held by Hamas ramping up the pressure.
This whole huge march of families up to Jerusalem comes to make a very clear stand to our government that they need to take any deal that they have and pay any price for these people, for their citizens, pretty much.
As negotiations drag on over a deal that could see Hamas free dozens of women and children in exchange for a multi-day ceasefire.
This is my sister-in-law, and this is my niece. She's 12 years old.
Their families are racked with anxiety.
It's been nerve-wracking, to tell you the truth, because, again, we don't know who to believe. We are trying to kind of scrape the last remnants of faith and trust in our government that when a relevant deal comes to the table, they will take it.
For now, they march and wait.
Talks of freeing some of the roughly 240 hostages are reportedly in the works. That's according to an Arab diplomat and other anonymous sources familiar with negotiations.
Hamas is demanding a multi-day ceasefire, more humanitarian aid, and freedom for an unknown number of Palestinians, many of whom were jailed for terrorism.
The terrorist group reportedly agreed to a deal to release at least 50 women and children held in Gaza.
Israel would have to agree to a 3 to 5 day pause in fighting to free them. Prime Minister Netanyahu said earlier this week that any information about a deal would be made public if and when concrete developments are made.
Netanyahu said yesterday that the military found strong indications Hamas was holding hostages at Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, but he said if they were taken out before the army arrived.
Netanyahu says Israel has intelligence about the hostages, but that the less he says about it, the better. And now to discuss the potential deal to release hostages held by Hamas terrorists, we speak to David Wormser, a senior analyst for Middle East Affairs at the Center for Security Policy. David, thank you for making the time today. Is Israel interested in accepting this deal under those terms?
Well, I think Israel is greatly tempted by this deal. It's got a lot of pressures right now in various directions. Obviously, the biggest is the hostage families, and as well as just every Israeli is horrified by the hostages. So the pressure to give in, to do anything, to bring back a large number of hostages is there. But at the same time, there's tremendous pressures in the other direction in terms of the military pace of the other side is basically arguing the best thing you can do is win quickly, and that will free the hostages as well. So there's really pressures in both ways, but Israel is clearly tempted.
Yeah, that is an imperative goal, bringing those hostages home safely. So what challenges does a 5-day truce cause for Israel's stated goal of eradicating Hamas?
Well, the biggest one is the military side, which is that right now the Israelis have had relentless pressure on Hamas, and they're seeing every sign that Hamas is beginning to crack and break. And in military affairs, if you stop in the middle of what is an impending victory, you give the other side a chance to regroup, get its sea legs back, and come back at you, as well as do some horrible things like take more hostages. Every truce that Israel's ever had with Hamas in the past has ended with an attempt to take Israeli soldiers further Israeli soldiers hostage, successfully at times. So the Israelis are terrified that more hostages would be taken. Number one, and number two, it would give Hamas a chance to regroup and regain some of its footing. And then third, the pressures internationally not to restart the war would grow immensely once the guns stop, and then Israel would wind up essentially losing the war. With still another 150 hostages or so in control of Hamas. So there's a lot of pressures in the other direction, heavy pressures in the other direction of not doing a ceasefire as well.
Thanks for some of that historical context surrounding this. Is this deal one of the only paths to ensuring the safe return of hostages, given the difficulty of rescuing them by force?
Well, I'm not sure it is a way to free all the hostages. I think the terrorist organization Hamas will hold a very substantial number of them all along because it's their guarantee of survival and victory. So they won't give them all up. So this is maybe a path for 50 of them. It's not the only path. The other way is, of course, if Israel wins and takes the entire territory, and then there's other things that the Israelis wouldn't be thinking of, that in a Middle Eastern sense would be done, but I don't believe the Israelis would think of them like much more aggressive killing of families of terrorist leaders and nations. But the Israelis don't do those things, so it's not going to be, that's not an option for them. So yeah, I think there's two options: either full victory and freeing the hostages that are alive, or making a deal to get back, at this point, what looks to be less than a quarter, maybe a fifth of the hostages.
Yes, David, analysts have said that Hamas uses the terrorist group uses these hostages as bargaining chips. If the deal does go through, what are the next steps to free the rest of the hostages that are in Hamas captivity?
Well, at that point, I think you'd see the pressure for a much more permanent ceasefire, and the price would go up dramatically for the Israelis, that with each batch, Hamas has fewer hostages left. They would still have, if what we're hearing about the parameters of the deal are true, they would still have somewhere between 200 to 150 hostages left now. They will raise the price. A week, 2 weeks ceasefire, permanent ceasefire. Every Israeli, every security prisoner that Israel has from every Palestinian terrorist organization, et cetera, et cetera. And the Israelis would never get there, but they would get toward a permanent ceasefire, which at this point, one has to remember, would constitute a defeat of Israel, especially in regional terms. Israel would then look weak, and that would guarantee a much greater deterioration of Israel's security position and a guarantee of further war, as well as the problem of the north, where the same thing can happen in northern Israel with Hezbollah in a year, and that is unresolved. So this war, Israel has fundamental objectives for its viability as a state in the region that can't be met if it stops now. But the pressures would grow immensely to stop with each pause.
Israel certainly has some difficult decisions to make. Thank you for bringing clarity to this. David Wormser, Senior Analyst for Middle East Affairs at the Center for Security Policy.
Thank you.
The Israeli military captured a Hamas-operated harbor in Gaza yesterday and bombed a Hamas meeting place.
As Israeli forces make gains in the northern part of Gaza, they're preparing for the next phase of ground operations.
In the last day, we completed the takeover and clearing of the entire western part of Gaza City. The next phase has begun. We have started the next phase.
There are signals that Israel's ground operation is about to expand in the south. Palestinians in parts of southern Gaza said they received evacuation notices Thursday.
As Israel prepares for the next phase of the campaign, Gaza is now cut off from the outside world.
The territory's telecom provider said all communication services are down across the Gaza Strip due to lack of fuel. And coming up, President Biden signed the stopgap spending bill yesterday to avert a government shutdown.
Republican Congressman George Santos is not seeking re-election next year. Find out more about the new House Ethics Report on the embattled congressman.
The number of New York police to drop to lowest level since the 80s. Education slashed by $1 billion. Mayor Eric Adams' tough budget cuts driven by the illegal immigration crisis. That's after the break.
Art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless. Experience Shen Yun.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
According to Marx, everything must be seen through the lens of oppressor and oppressed. Our property rights have continued to get weaker. The threat of these takings is no longer just for public use, but also for better use. This means that the government can't force the exchange of property from one private citizen to another private citizen. Now, this is nowhere near the Founding Fathers' intentions. We now have a record share of Americans that have never been married, I being one of them. In fact, the median age of a first marriage has never been higher. Now, you may be thinking this is only affecting single adults. Well, not exactly. According to Pew Research, 1 in 4 parents living with their child are unmarried. And let's take a look at how many children are currently living with either one parent or no parent.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call 800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now.
800-494-1562.
Good to have you back. The federal government will remain open after Friday. The White House says President Biden signed a stopgap funding bill.
The move comes after intense bargaining and voting in the House and Senate.
House Speaker Mike Johnson produced the stopgap funding bill that drew bipartisan support. Democrats said they were happy it stuck to spending levels that had been set in an agreement with President Biden. They were also happy it didn't include provisions on abortion or other contentious issues.
The Senate's 87-11 vote on Wednesday marked the end of this year's third fiscal standoff in Congress. The bill provides tiered funding through January 19th and February 2nd. That means without a deal, the shutdown clock will resume in the new year.
New York Republican Congressman George Santos announced yesterday night that he will not seek re-election to the House next year.
That's after a scathing report from the House Ethics Committee. It says there is overwhelming evidence that Santos broke the law.
It concluded that he cannot be trusted. This as Santos is facing a 23-count federal indictment. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more on what the report found.
After a months-long investigation, the Bipartisan Ethics Committee finds that Republican Congressman George Santos knowingly violated a number of ethics and criminal statutes. Many of those crimes that are referred to in this report are actually the same crimes that he's facing a total of 23 federal charges for right now. The report reads, Representative Santos sought to fraudulently exploit every aspect of his House candidacy for his own personal profit, accusing him of using campaign funds and his personal affairs and lying about his background to win over donors and constituents. The evidence consists of more than 170,000 pages of documents and testimonies from dozens of witnesses. The committee is now referring this evidence to the Department of Justice, and Santos has responded to this report, calling it a politicized smear. He also says he's committed to finishing out this term, but he will not run for re-election next term. Meanwhile, some of his House colleagues, even Republicans, are eager to boot him out. Many Republicans are calling on him to resign, and there is an effort underway right now to hold another expulsion vote to get him out of Congress. They did try to do this in the past in the House of Representatives. However, there were some Republicans who protected him from being expelled on the grounds that this report had not yet been released. Now that it has been released, we'll see if this next vote of expulsion turns out any differently. That vote could happen as soon as the House returns from their Thanksgiving break. Reporting from Capitol Hill, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
There are concerns about the abuse of private data.
House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan has subpoenaed Bank of America for information about whether they shared such customer data with the FBI.
Specifically, the transactions of those in D.C. on the day of the 2021 Capitol breach. The committee is investigating whether proper legal procedures were followed.
Whistleblowers claim Bank of America shared information about customers who made transactions in the Washington area on or near January 6th, including those who bought firearms using Bank of America accounts.
Bank of America argues they followed applicable laws, adding that it cooperated with the government's urgent efforts to deal with possible criminal activity around the presidential inauguration. And the Supreme Court has ruled a Florida law that limits drag shows in the state shall remain blocked. The decision yesterday denied the state's efforts to keep the new law in effect while it plays out in the courts. The Protection of Children Act was designed to prevent the exposure of children to sexually explicit live performances. It's widely understood to refer to drag shows. The 2023 law makes it a misdemeanor, to knowingly admit a child to such a show. The High Court's order means that state officials cannot enforce the law at all until the legal challenge is resolved. A spokesman for Governor Ron DeSantis said the Supreme Court did not rule on the law's merits and that he expects the law to be upheld.
Quality of life taking a hit. Mayor Eric Adams says New York's illegal immigrant crisis has forced the city to slash school, police, and library budgets. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the move critics are calling dangerous.
Speaking at a town hall event, Adams said that over 140,000 illegal immigrants have come to the city so far and that New York is out of room.
People say, well, Eric, why don't you close the door? Why don't you stop allowing people to come in? I can't. That's against the law.
New York has been a sanctuary city since the 1980s. That's a city that limits or refuses to cooperate with the national government on immigration law enforcement.
I believe New Yorkers believe in plain talk and honesty. We're in some serious financial trouble right now.
According to the mayor, the federal government should be picking up the multi-billion-dollar tab from the illegal immigrant influx.
Should not be coming out of the backs of everyday New Yorkers. That is wrong, and that is what is happening.
The mayor says every agency in the city will be hit by the cuts.
I got to be honest about that. I'm not going to give any false impressions. This is the most painful exercise I've ever done in my professional life.
Officials estimate the budget cuts will take 4,000 police off the streets over the next 2 years, a move surely to anger residents like this woman, already feeling overwhelmed by crime.
There is a huge problem with drug sales, drug trafficking, and shootings, especially in the evenings and on the weekends. There are mentally ill drug users that are surrounding these neighborhoods, menacing the people on the blocks outside and attempting to get into the apartment buildings.
The New York Times reports that the Education Department budget will take $1 billion hit over 2 years, and 2 popular programs, Universal Pre-Kindergarten and Summer School, will be hobbled. Libraries say they will have to shut down on Sundays due to the budget slashing. New York City Council Speaker Adrienne Adams says the cuts are blunt and careless. She called out the administration for providing services for the illegal immigrants using expensive emergency contracts with for-profit companies. Mayor Adams says the immigrant crisis will cost about $11 billion over the next 2 years, and that the 2024 budget already has a $7 billion hole in it.
City officials say the cuts will go into effect immediately. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
President Biden is meeting with Mexican President Lopez Obrador in San Francisco today. The two are meeting at the annual APEC conference. At core of their talks will be migration, fentanyl trafficking, and Cuba relations.
The meeting marks yet another in-person meeting between Biden and world leaders. Biden is expected to address the illegal migrant situation at the southern border, as well as the growing fentanyl trade in the U.S.
On the topic of illegal immigration and money, as Southern California woman is in some hot water, she admitted to getting over $1 million to help smuggle illegal immigrants across the border.
Yeah, she actually says she organized drivers to pick up the immigrants once they crossed the border and told drivers where to take them. The woman said in her plea agreement that one of her drivers took more than 75 people between October 2021 and April 2022.
This is yet another case showing crime doesn't pay. She's now facing 10 years in federal prison.
And before we take a short break here, we're going to get to some short headlines.
Famous entertainer and entrepreneur Sean Diddy Combs has been accused of rape and assault by his former romantic partner, Cassie Ventura. Other allegations say Combs encouraged Ventura to drink excessive amounts of alcohol and abuse drugs while forcing her to get illegal prescription medications for him. A lawyer for Combs says the entertainer denies the, quote, outrageous allegations.
The Texas murder trial of professional cyclist Moriah Wilson ended with a guilty plea for Caitlin Armstrong yesterday. Wilson was found in an apartment with gunshot wounds prosecutors said came from a weapon belonging to Armstrong. Wilson briefly dated Armstrong's boyfriend. Prosecutors argued that Armstrong was fueled by romantic jealousy when she shot Wilson. It's not yet known when Miss Armstrong will be sentenced.
Over 30 people were injured yesterday when a Chicago subway smashed into a snowplow. Nearly 24 people were taken to the hospital, including 3 with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. 4 children were also among those injured. The snowplow was driving on the train track when hit by the 2-car train. An investigation is now underway. And next, President Biden again highlighting differences between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist regime one day after calling the CCP leader a dictator. What he's saying as he seeks to boost ties with Indo-Pacific countries.
And during a meeting between President Biden and Chinese regime leader, they spoke about China's plans for Taiwan. We take a closer look at the dangers of a Taiwan invasion when we come back.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore ShenYunCreations.com.
What was the process of actually putting this all together?
Many hours of finding the right camera angles and watching it. The first trouble started just after 1 o'clock.
45 pages, here it is right here. Donald Trump has been indicted.
Somber day for the country.
This all happened before President Trump's speech was over.
The founder of the Oath Keepers militia group is headed to prison for more than 18 years.
His lawyers didn't have this video. The video we're watching right now, his own lawyers did not have. There was a big question of what did the people do who actually did enter the building.
This is where we picked it up with the security footage that is new. At this point, the story dramatically changes.
The New Jersey man who assaulted a Capitol police officer on January 6th has been sentenced.
So this was withheld.
This was not shown to the defense.
That could be considered exculpatory evidence. This doesn't seem like what a lot of the media is showing.
It's going to change narratives no matter what your political perspective is. What we're after is the truth.
Hi everyone watching at home. We're here to remind you that if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, listen up. We have live agents available right now to answer your questions and tell you how much your case is potentially worth. Hi, I'm Gina Bellich, here with spokesman and TV personality Tom Mustin with us in the Help Center. So Tom, phones are really busy over there. Tell us what kind of calls you're seeing.
Well, Gina, first off, thank you for having me here in the call center with you. We always enjoy talking to the viewers and getting folks the compensation that they deserve. You know, we're seeing calls about all kinds of accidents, but the most common by far has been car accidents. So if you or someone you know were injured in an accident that was not your fault, give us a call right now. You'll speak with a live person. They'll answer any questions you have and tell you if you have a case and how much your case is potentially worth.
Thanks, Tom. All right, folks at home, you heard it. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now.
Thanks for staying with us. President Biden seeks to assure Asian Pacific allies that the U.S. is a more reliable trade partner than the Chinese Communist regime.
NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more from the APEC summit in San Francisco.
As President Biden is seeking to deepen ties with Indo-Pacific economies right here at the APEC summit, he's again highlighting the fundamental differences that exist between the United States and the Chinese regime. Here is him addressing a CEO summit on Thursday. Watch.
We have real differences with Beijing when it comes to maintaining fair and level economic playing field and protecting your intellectual property. We'll be firm, standing up for our values and our interests.
And President Biden asked that businesses as well as countries can count on the U.S. as a reliable and secure partner. And that echoes with Biden's calls for countries to rally behind the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific economic framework, which is often seen as a more reliable alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative. And all this comes after President Biden said he'd raised human rights issues with the head of the CCP and also called him a dictator. Watch.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he is a guy who runs a country that is a communist country that's based on a form of government totally different than ours.
And here in San Francisco, where the APEC summit is taking place, groups that are persecuted in China by the Chinese Communist regime, including practitioners of the meditation practice Falun Gong, told us that they have this message for the Biden administration.
You're taking innocent people, putting them in labor camps, and torturing them for their beliefs. We can't stand for this, and the Biden administration should take action and speak strongly about this.
The group's peaceful demonstrations are expected to last until the end of this summit. Back to you.
During the recent meeting with President Biden, China's regime leader says Taiwan is the biggest issue in the U.S.-China ties. So let's bring in Greg Copley to zoom in on those talks. He's the president of the International Strategic Studies Association. Good morning, Greg. It's really good to have you. Now, first, I want to know about, because there were many mixed messages regarding Taiwan this time after the meeting, but she reportedly also said clearly that China was not readying for a Taiwan invasion. Apparently also left the possibility open, though, that the use of force could be utilized. Now, I'm wondering from you, how do you interpret that?
Well, the reality is that the People's Republic of China is not yet ready militarily to invade Taiwan, so it's going to have to adopt other approaches to trying to constrain Taiwan in order to save Xi Jinping, because he has staked his career on recapturing, or capturing rather, Taiwan and bringing it into the People's Republic of China, which was never part of the People's Republic of China before. So he's going to do something, otherwise his position within the Communist Party is finished. He has presided over the collapse of the economy, he has delivered nothing, and it's all on the promise that Taiwan will somehow be brought into the communist family. And that's unlikely to happen through military means at this stage. So he will try something else, which could be a quarantining of the island of Taiwan. in the near future, probably after the January elections in the Republic of China, Taiwan.
So that's an interesting time frame. Why do you say that?
Because he's waiting to see who might become the next president. If the DPP recaptures the presidency, it looks as though he has failed to influence the people of Taiwan, because the DPP is regarded as hostile to the One China concept. Whereas if the Kuomintang wins, he could hail that as some kind of victory, which it's really not. But he needs something to save face. And the whole summit, in fact, in San Francisco was about saving Xi's face and image so that he doesn't look like a total failure on the home market in mainland China.
Interesting take. So let's talk about those other approaches that you were mentioning a little bit later. But first, I want to know, when Xi says there is a possibility that the use of force could be utilized, what could those conditions be? When you're saying that right now, if I understand you correctly, that would rather do harm to the CCP.
It would do harm to the CCP. If they tried anything right now, it would result in failure, because the People's Liberation Army is not ready to undertake a military engagement with Taiwan, particularly as it would bring in Japan, the United States, Australia, and so on. So what does Xi do? He is facing increasing unpopularity within the party, within the PLA, and within the public, of course, because of the impoverishment of the Chinese people. So he has to do something, and it's all about his survival. It's not about a strategic necessity so much for the People's Republic of China at this stage. It's about Xi's personal survival politically and in fact, in life terms. Because unless he does something to restore his prestige, then it's likely that elements within the CCP, coupled with the PLA, will sideline him within the near future. So the election in January in Taiwan is going to be critical to giving him some little hook to say, I've achieved something or I've achieved nothing. So if as is possible, the DPP is restored to power in the next presidential elections, then probably Beijing would do something like a quarantining of Taiwan before the May swearing in of the new president. So that's the timeline we're looking at. The question is, what is it he's going to do? And the quarantining could be a very high risk proposition, because if he tries to cut off by land, by sea, and by air any communications into Taiwan and out of Taiwan, he's risking escalation. We know that he has considered the cutting off of the undersea cable networks linking Taiwan with the outside world, and there are about 8 or 9 of those with 5 landing stations, I think, on Taiwan. That again would be a high-risk escalation. So they've planned for various degrees of escalation, which would hopefully, in his mind, not get the PLA anxious to move against him. So it's all now about how desperate Xi Jinping feels.
Right.
It's not about, if you like, a classical necessity for a strategic military move by Beijing.
Interesting to keep an eye on that. And one more thing, just very quickly before we go, I want to touch on what Biden was saying during the press conference, that the U.S. will maintain a one China policy. Now, what exactly does that mean? Does that sound like the U.S. is maybe taking a softer stance, and what would the repercussion be of that?
It's verbally a softer stance, although it reflects no change at all in Washington's policy. And underlying, of course, Washington's policy is this concept of strategic ambiguity, saying things which don't necessarily give you a clear idea of where they're going. In reality, even under the Biden administration, which has been very soft on Xi Jinping, there has been a great improvement in the military support for Taiwan. And that's occurring not just from the US, but also from Japan and other allies. So basically, both Xi and Biden have indicated no change at all in their intentions there. The US, however, is getting much more accustomed to the thought as to how it will link with the Republic of China, the Taiwanese armed forces, and reinforce them at critical times. So that message has been received loudly and clearly by the PLA, which does not want to risk this escalation at this time.
Well, thank you so much for your analysis and your insight on this, Greg Copley. I appreciate your time, as always.
Thank you very much.
Heading to break, the Department of Education is investigating cases of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in schools and college campuses.
And college campuses are becoming the focal point for a pro-Palestinian movement gaining traction as cases of anti-Semitism are on the rise. Stay with us.
Organize your freezer. Now keep your freezer fresh and long-lasting. Smart Freezer Container. Thanks, Soyun. The magic of the freezer. Make efficient use of freezer space. Keep the freezer cleaner and more tidy. Easy to store modular system. Resistant from -22 degrees to 212 degrees. For family safety, BPA-free and LDPE material. Different sizes for different applications, depending on the size and use. Use it smartly. Efficient space utilization for cold air circulation. Neatly organized with minimal empty space. Partitions and trays for more efficient storage. Smart Freezer Container.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce exercise-induced joint discomfort as early as day 1 and reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
I'm Kelly Wright in New York City, and we are NTD News.
Good to have you back. Hate on college campuses in the wake of the October 7th Hamas terror attacks.
The Department of Education has launched investigations into 7 schools after complaints about alleged anti-Semitism and Islamophobia.
The investigations include 5 anti-Semitism cases and 2 Islamophobia cases. The reports come from 1 K-12 school in Kansas and 6 colleges, including Cornell, Columbia, and Cooper Union in New York.
The Department of Education will make recommendations to the schools after the investigations. If they don't follow them, they could lose federal funding. The investigations were launched under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which says universities and schools have to provide a discrimination-free environment. The BDS, or Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement, is a Palestinian-led effort gaining traction on college campuses.
I spoke to a Cornell law professor on the origins of the movement. Take a look.
So the BDS movement actually started at the 2001 Durban conference, which was so anti-Semitic, the U.S. walked out of it. They then launched a charade of a civil call from Palestinian society, but it was just a charade. It was the repackaging of the anti-Jewish boycotts as announced at the Durban Anti-Semitic Conference, a conference so horrible that they were passing out gross caricatures of Jews at that conference. And they repackaged it because they realized it wasn't working. And they also were very savvy in understanding the approach that was gaining traction on Western campuses and in Western society, the so-called social justice movement. So they essentially hijacked the social justice movement, repackaged the anti-Jewish boycotts, called it boycott, divestment, and sanctions. But the goal has been to drive the Jews out of the Jewish homeland, which is Israel.
So the BDS website says this, that the BDS upholds the simple principle that Palestinians are entitled to the same rights as the rest of humanity. Now, it sounds like they're just fighting for equal rights of Palestinians. Do you think that there is maybe, or let's say maybe in modern times, there could be a chance of the disconnect between the means that they're using and what they're actually trying to achieve?
Yeah, I don't think they believe that when they say that. We know what they mean when they see equal rights for Palestinians in Israel. First of all, Palestinians do have equal rights in Israel. If you're a citizen of Israel, if you're Arab Israeli, you have the same rights as Jews have. Unlike many Muslim countries, where if you're not Muslim, you don't have the same rights. So, first of all, within the state of Israel, Muslims and Palestinians have the same rights. Approximately 20% of the Israeli population self-identify as Arab Israelis. They mostly don't identify as Palestinians. Then you have the West Bank in Gaza, where Palestinians have rights under their own governments. I mean, the Palestinian Authority runs most of the West Bank. 90+% of Palestinians in the West Bank live in areas controlled by the Palestinian Authority. And you hear a lot of people say, well, Palestinians don't have a right to vote, but Israeli Jews do. Well, they do have a right to vote. The problem is the Palestinian Authority refuses to hold elections.
What should students be looking for? When is criticism on Israel anti-Semitism? Because there are Israelis that are criticizing their government.
Criticism of Israel, similar in nature to what you would criticize other governments, is not anti-Semitic. And you're absolutely right that many Israelis criticize their government. Many American Jews criticize the Israeli government. Many Americans criticize the U.S. government. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it becomes demonization, when it becomes dehumanization, when you treat Israel differently than you treat other governments, specifically because it is Jewish, that is anti-Semitic. And that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing that Israeli Jews have been dehumanized. You have people denying that the massacres that Hamas committed, that they taped on GoPro cameras, that they boasted about, that they spread throughout the internet, all those things. You see people saying it never happened or the Israelis did it to themselves. That sort of criticism is anti-Semitic because you are treating Israelis not as you would treat other people, not as you would treat other governments. You're treating them as somehow uniquely evil in the world. So that is the distinction that I draw and that we should be drawing on campuses and elsewhere. Criticism of Israel is fine. Dehumanization of Israel is anti-Semitic.
Coming up, online retail giant Amazon is looking to come into the auto sales market as they partner with automaker Hyundai.
And imagine your daughter's desperate voice on the phone telling you she's been kidnapped, but that may not actually be your daughter. And AI scams are surging. The Senate holds a hearing. Stay with us.
The shining gem of New England. This delightful seaside city of Newport is one of the most beautiful places in the state. Today, we bring you here as we meet with our friends and fellow musicians from the Hermitage Piano Trio. As a team, they have garnered multiple Grammy Award nominations with their breathtaking performances.
Oh, wow, I did not think this instrument can make that sound, right?
The pandemic made this reunion even more special.
3 of us, we like it because we feel music the same way, so...
Don't miss us on the next episode of Piano Talks.
Over 13 million Americans were affected by identity theft in 2022. And the threats go way beyond just credit card fraud. Today's identity thieves can open loans, transfer home titles, and even commit crimes in your name.
Someone got my social security number, made a driver's license, and it was used for criminal activity.
Your information is exposed through online shopping, banking, even corporate data breaches. No wonder there's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. Only LifeLock alerts you to the widest volume of threats all in one place.
I clicked, "That's not me," and LifeLock took it from there.
If you become a victim, a dedicated US-based restoration specialist will work to fix the issue. All LifeLock members are backed by the LifeLock $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I will be with LifeLock forever.
Enrollment takes just minutes. Call now or go online and use promo code GET25 to save 25% on your first year. Enroll now.
My dad's name was David. He always talked about getting life insurance, and now it's too late.
No one was expecting my husband Dave to suffer from a heart attack. We didn't have life insurance. We thought we had more time.
Don't be Dave, and don't wait until it's too late to get the life insurance coverage you need. And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Call now to get affordable life insurance.
Just call
800-494-1562.
If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam, no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Remember, don't be Dave. Call now.
Call now.
800-494-1562.
I'm Jack Bradley in Florida, and we are NTD News.
Good to have you back. In our business news today, you can buy almost anything on Amazon, and soon you'll be able to buy a car on the online shopping platform as well.
One of the first cars that will be available for purchase next year is a Hyundai through an agreement with the South Korean automaker.
So joining us now is NTD business host Don Ma. Don, buying a car on Amazon, tell us more.
Yeah, of course. This vehicle launch will be for next year, so it's going to be very soon. Local car dealers can now actually show their cars directly to customers on the website. And the first car is going to be a Hyundai, as Kevin mentioned. And of course, in typical Amazon fashion, the car can be delivered, or you can pick it up as well at the dealership. So the goal here is, from Amazon to make the experience as seamless as possible. Just like buying anything else on Amazon. But in itself, buying a vehicle online is not anything new. But the breakthrough here is that dealers can use the Amazon platform, which has millions of consumers. So that's a lot of exposure. So this is the real breakthrough here. And it seems like at this point, they're not talking to other companies, but I'm sure they will in the future. Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of potential here.
Well, hopefully they're not going to try to deliver it by drone. But now most states do have laws that limit or ban the manufacturers themselves from selling the vehicles directly to consumers. So how's Amazon tackling that?
Sure, great question. So the end seller of the vehicle is still going to be the dealer, and Amazon is just performing the middleman role, if you will, in this whole process. Amazon's deal with Hyundai is sort of circumventing this issue that you mentioned just now by making dealers an important part of the process here. And of course, part of this process will allow consumers to choose a vehicle, configure them as well, calculate the price, and locate a dealer to complete the sale. And I think this has some potential here, because I don't know about you guys, because personally when I'm looking to buy a little thing, sometimes I don't even go to physical stores anymore, because you have to think about which store has the item, and once you're in the store, you have to think about which aisle. For example, Home Depot, let's say, it's aisle after aisle after aisle, and you're just looking for this little thing. For me personally, I would just type it in online and it gets delivered to my door. And I think a lot of people are in my camp as well. I don't think it's just myself. So I think it has potential here.
Saves a lot of time.
Definitely with you. Yeah, definitely with you. The simplicity of it all. But also, let's move on. And because I saw that Apple is announcing some big changes, so to the iPhone, does that mean that Android users are finally able to use that blue bubble, text bubble with iPhone?
Well, that's what we've been all waiting for, right? There's no blue text bubbles quite yet, but Apple announced plans to adopt a messaging standard that will bring iMessage features to Android users. The new standard will add features like read receipt, typing indicators, better support for group chats, and higher quality media sharing across platforms. Apple plans to add support for rich communication services later next year. But don't expect the blue or green bubbles to go away though. One analyst says keeping the colors is an Apple marketing strategy that will likely continue.
Makes sense. Well, it's a step forward. It's a little too late for me though, because I left that club a while ago, the Android club.
Yeah, so Don, do you have anything else for us?
Yeah, sure. It seems like some good news for consumers as well. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon says consumers could see lower prices in the coming weeks and months, with possibly Walmart entering a, quote, deflationary environment. So that's good news, it seems like. McMillon says the U.S. food industry may be heading into a period of deflation after 3 years of price hikes. We'll wait and see on that. Food prices have increased 25% since the pandemic started.
Well, yeah, that is good news that some of these grocery items prices are down a little bit, but the CFO of Walmart says that customers are still kind of waiting and shopping the sales, especially Black Friday and things like that.
Well, I mean, consumers' wallets are tight these days, so it makes sense. They want to take advantage of Black Friday and Cyber Monday coming up soon.
That's right. Don Ma, host of NTD Business, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, imagine hearing your daughter's desperate voice on the phone saying she's been kidnapped and needs you to pay a $50,000 ransom. But does she really? Creative AI scams like this are on the rise, stealing billions from terrified parents. NTD's Jack Bradley has more.
My phone rang. It was my son. He was crying. He said, "Dad, I was in an accident. I hit another car being driven by a pregnant woman. My nose is broken. They arrested me."
Gary Shieldhorn was the intended victim of an AI phone scam. The scammers used generative artificial intelligence to clone his son's voice. They used the voice to make him think his son was in jail. The only way out? To have a mysterious public defender named Barry Goldstein help pay his bail.
"Mr. Goldstein, can you post a bond for my son?" "Yes." "You need to wire me $9,000. A few minutes later, FaceTime call from my son. He's pointing to his nose. He goes, "My nose is fine. I'm fine. You're being scammed."
Shieldhorn's story is one of many presented at a Thursday hearing of the Senate Committee on Aging. The FTC estimates that older adults may have lost as much as $50 billion to scams in 2022.
She repeated it again, "Mom, Mom, Mom," and and sound exactly like her.
So I answered the phone, and it was my 15-year-old daughter crying and sobbing, saying, Mom, help me. These bad men have me. Help me, help me, help.
I heard sirens and my daughter's voice. And she said in a crying voice, Mom, I got in an accident.
These scams are usually meticulously designed to look as real as possible. Common red flag: scams usually involve sending a non-traceable payment. This is typically done through cryptocurrency transactions at crypto kiosks and through gift cards. One way to foil these scams
is doing a password among your friends and family and making sure that you're not publicizing that password or putting it in an email, because hackers will be able to get access to that. But if somebody were to call you, you can say password authenticate.
Tech expert Tom Romanoff says it's unlikely that scammers would know that password. If they can't provide it, that's a sign of a scam. It's very difficult for law enforcement to stop these scams. In fact, they may not even try.
That moment of extreme, horrific, terror probably shook Jennifer to her core. The police said there was nothing that they could do. No money was transferred. No crime, they said, had been committed.
Senator Mark Kelly believes this is a blind spot in the law. He's looking into potential legislation to target these types of scammers. Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Well, listen, another chapter in the book of dangers of AI, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen the deepfake scams and everything, and now this, and that was a good possibility to prevent this, is the password authentication. You could just have a conversation with them, say, hey, what was the name of our first dog? And then when the AI can't figure it out, okay, this is a scam.
There you go.
Got to be vigilant.
Good idea, yeah. We're heading to a quick break now, so stay with us.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
Yeah, so there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Good morning and welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are top stories. Former President Trump keeps a firm hold on his lead in New Hampshire. It's who's polling in second that might surprise you.
New Hampshire defies Biden and the DNC by setting a January 23rd date for their primary election, making it the first in the nation. A political strategist tells us why and how this will affect the Democratic primary.
3 GOP presidential hopefuls will meet for a family discussion on politics. Is former President Trump expected to attend?
Terrorist indoctrination taught in UN-funded schools, with teachers praising the October 7th attacks. We asked the executive director of UN Watch, who says American taxpayers are paying for it.
A pro-Palestine student group and the ACLU are suing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and the University of Florida. The group alleges infringement on their First Amendment rights.
Scaling a mountain is an incredible feat. Hear this young climber's story of climbing one of Greece's tallest mountains when he was only 7.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Welcome. Today is Friday, finally November 15th, and we're starting off with some election updates. Former President Trump is holding on to a significant lead in New Hampshire among likely GOP voters. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley gained ground over her rivals, moving into second place in a new poll.
The poll was conducted by CNN and the University of New Hampshire this week. It has Trump coming in at 42% of the vote.
Haley had 20%. Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie came in third above DeSantis, although 47% of the likely GOP voters polled said they would never support him.
Haley's support climbed 8% since the last CNN UNH poll, and September, with Ramaswamy dropping by 5%. The likely Republican voters polled ranked Trump highly on his policy, decision-making, and integrity. And more on the primary election that's coming up. New Hampshire has set January 23rd as their presidential primary date. The move is in opposition to Biden's order, which sees South Carolina as the first primary in the nation instead of the Granite State. To learn more about this, we're bringing in Raven Harrison, a political strategist and former congressional candidate. Raven, good morning to you. Why did New Hampshire defy the DNC here?
Well, good morning to you as well. I think New Hampshire defied it because contractually and structurally they have an agreement that they are supposed to be the first, that they are the kickoff, just what Iowa caucuses is to presidential debates, and the whole political scene is what New Hampshire is to the DNC. So I think they were just forcing the DNC to honor their agreement to make New Hampshire first. They're supposed to be the first one, and they have been up until this year.
So why does the DNC want South Carolina to have the first Democrat primary?
I think there's a fracture among the DNC with this. I think the old school DNC wants to keep things the way they were. The new wave, which is being spearheaded by Biden, is trying to capture more of the African American vote, and they're trying to pull in a broader base because they're hemorrhaging voters in certain demographics. So that is widely believed the move of trying to move it to South Carolina is to try to cast a bigger net and swing a bit more in, momentum in going into these primaries.
So is New Hampshire's move here going to affect the primary election for Biden at all?
Well, there's a couple of things that might affect it. This might be one, the jostling. New Hampshire has managed to get it back on track to set the date so that they are technically the first. So we'll see if that matters among the would-be voters. But we've also got some jostling that's been happening in terms of the speculation growing about Gavin Newsom coming up behind the scenes to be inserted for Biden. So we've got a few things in play that could either energize or distract from the party.
That is interesting. So Biden's name is not going to be on the Democratic primary ballot in New Hampshire, but it doesn't seem like there are any contenders that would give him a run for his money, making this basically moot, would you say?
Correct. I think that right now they're pretty content to say, hey, we're going to write him in, for him not being in there. But I think it's part of a larger strategy that they're trying to right now keep everything stitched up and tight going into their momentum starter.
So where did this all start, this whole rift between New Hampshire and the DNC?
I think the rift is starting because there are some policies. You've got some top-level strategies that are coming from the White House on how we retain the voters that we are losing. And also, we've got all of this conflict that's going on right now that has to do with Israel and Jewish aid, and that's a huge voting bloc. Traditionally, 68% or more of the Jewish population votes for Democrats. So you've got some kind of strategies going and working with multiple wheels going in the same direction. So I think that's what started the rift, and that's what they're trying to do now, is to make sure they don't lose any more of the base going into their kickoff.
Is New Hampshire's decision to become the first in the nation primary once again going to affect the general election at all?
I think it might among the established and the old school DNC voters, the ones who they're trying to pull in, likely not. But the fact that it's contractually, a lot of people don't realize this is in New Hampshire's contract with the DNC that they are the first. So they really had that in terms of demanding that they remain first and keep that significance in politics as being the first and the kickoff.
Well, it is great hearing your analysis. Raven Harrison, political strategist and former congressional candidate. Thank you.
Thank you.
3 GOP presidential hopefuls will meet in Iowa today for what's billed as a family discussion.
Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will take part in the Des Moines roundtable discussion.
Former President Trump was also invited but is not expected to attend the event. The host of the discussion is a conservative organization called the Family Leader. It emphasized the event isn't a debate after the RNC Council sent a letter warning candidates that attendance would disqualify them from future RNC debates.
After DeSantis committed to attending anyway, the moderator of the event, Bob Vanderplaats, said the RNC issued a second letter. It said an agreement was made on the event format and it could proceed as planned. Vanderplaats said the forum will give Iowans a chance to see what's in the candidates' hearts, not just their plans.
And a pro-Palestine student group and the ACLU are suing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and the University of Florida, this over alleged violation of the group's First Amendment rights.
A curriculum of hate being taught in UNRWA schools as teachers that praise the October 7th terrorist attacks. We talked to the executive director of UN Watch, who says American taxpayers are paying for it.
A young British climber defies all odds and scales one of the tallest mountains in Greece. Stay tuned to hear more about his incredible ascension.
Freedom is not free, and neither is the truth. In order to bring you the facts, our reporters are out there on the front lines getting the true story. Some of them served 10 years of prison in China. We've been censored on social media. Our Hong Kong printing offices were set on fire, and we've been repeatedly attacked by the Chinese Communist Party. But no matter what, we believe that you deserve the truth, and so we'll continue to bring the truth to life. Head on over to getepic.com and try honest journalism that is based in truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Water, nature's ultimate cleaner. We drink it, we bathe in it. Think water, think steam, think clean. Now harness the power of water with the H2O X5 5-in-1 steam cleaning system.
I'm so impressed with the X5. It's an all-in-one product. I can use it throughout my entire house.
It's cleaning, it's sanitizing, there's no chemicals in it. It's just steam.
This is unbelievable. There is no more odor. You could spend over $500 to purchase the products at the X5 5-in-1 Miracle Replaces. Order your H2O X5 steam cleaning system, a $500 value for just 4 easy payments of $43. Order now and we'll upgrade your X5 package. We'll add a 6th mode with a dusting and polishing wand. Valued at over $30, this extra bonus attachment makes your H2O X5 the H2O X6. That means your 10-piece system becomes a 12-piece system at no extra cost to you. All for just 3 easy payments of $43. Call or click right now.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest Christmas sale ever. You get our brand new 6-piece My Towels for only $29.98, or rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper as low as $99.99. Or how about MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $24.98? There's something for everyone. Duvets, quilts, down comforters, body pillows, bolster pillows, and so much more. Well, I know MyPillow products make for the perfect Christmas gifts, so I'm going to extend my money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2024. So go to MyPillow.com now or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you get our 6-piece towels for only $29.98. Or get your very own MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $24.98. It's our biggest Christmas sale ever. Get all your shopping done now while quantities last.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Turning now to updates from the Israel-Hamas war.
Israeli troops are preparing for the next phase of their ground operations in Gaza while they've found the body of another hostage.
Israel says the body of a second Israeli hostage was found near Al-Shifa hospital today. She's been identified as 19-year-old Noah Marciano, a corporal in the Israel Defense Forces.
Israel's military says her body has been transferred to Israeli territory. The IDF said yesterday it found the body of a 65-year-old Israeli woman who was kidnapped.
There are signals that Israel's ground operation is about to expand in the south. Palestinians in parts of the southern Gaza said they received evacuation notices Thursday. And multiple schools and teachers glorifying terrorism, endorsing violence, and praising martyrdom. Those were the findings of a joint report on UNRWA schools, the UN-funded schools for Palestinian refugees.
UNRWA teachers and staff were also documented demonizing Israelis, promoting anti-Semitism, and denying Israel's existence. Some even praised the October 7th terrorist attacks. NTD spoke with the executive director of UN Watch, who says American taxpayers pay for this.
The 2023 Joint Report on UNRWA School Indoctrination comes from UN Watch and the Institute for Monitoring Peace and Cultural Tolerance in School Education. It identified well over 100 UNRWA teachers and staff that promote hate and violence on social media. The report was presented to Congress last week as it considers bills to eliminate funding for the agency. It was submitted to the UN with no answer yet.
We've not seen any action, anyone fired. These are teachers who glorified one of the worst atrocities of our time, a mass terrorist attack.
Hillel Neuer, executive director of UN Watch, told NTD that U.S. taxpayers are paying them.
They called them heroes, the murderers. They called them princes, said it's a glorious day, and we're paying for it. You know, I'm living in Switzerland. I'm Canadian. Both those countries, Canada and Switzerland, give money to UNRWA. The United States is giving well over $300 million a year to UNRWA. The American taxpayer is paying for teachers who are celebrating the murder of Jews.
Former President Trump cut all U.S. funding for UNRWA in 2018. The State Department called it an irredeemably flawed operation after reviewing the agency's business model and practices. The Biden administration brought funding with conditions back in 2021.
If a teacher in the United States at a public school were found to be glorifying Hitler and celebrating the mass murder of anyone, that teacher would be fired immediately, would never go before a classroom again. Why is it that Palestinian children are denied their basic human rights, and the United Nations is knowingly employing teachers who are indoctrinating Palestinian children, the next generation, if you will, to become Hamas murderers? That's what the UN is doing.
Neuer says it's a violation of the UN's guarantee in its founding charter to treat all nations equally. He says the double standard and focus on Israel takes attention off other countries' issues that need to be addressed.
The UN never addressed the persecution of the Uyghurs. China is immune, has never been criticized by the General Assembly. If we speak of the Human Rights Council, as you mentioned, China is a member. The Islamic Republic of Iran, which beats, blinds, tortures women for the crime of protesting. They were made the chair of a UN Human Rights Forum recently. These are breaches of the UN's founding principles, which are supposed to protect human rights. It's absurd. And regular people around the world are losing credibility in the UN when they spend all their time demonizing the Jewish state and giving a free pass to the world's worst dictatorships.
Neuer says decent countries need to do the right thing and speak out.
The fact that Cuba got 146 votes to be elected to the Human Rights Council is absurd. The fact that the Islamic Republic of Iran was made the chair of this UN Human Rights Forum just 2 weeks ago and no one said anything. I mean, the US made a statement, but that was it. The European Union said nothing. That's shameful. So our democracies, they won't always win the votes, but they have to fight back. They have to speak out. They have to go on the record and defend principles of democracy and human rights. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot of political cowardice. And that's why the dictators are winning the day at the UN.
Back to the U.S., a pro-Palestine student group and the ACLU are initiating a lawsuit in Florida.
The announcement came yesterday when the ACLU posted on X that it will be suing the University of Florida system and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. This over alleged violation of the group's First Amendment rights.
It came in response to DeSantis' order to deactivate the group for a statement made by the Associated Group Students for Justice in Palestine. The lawsuit challenges an order issued by the head of the university after DeSantis instructed the facility to strip the group of its official recognition.
The ACLU argues that any separate association with independent national organizations should not serve as grounds for punishment. According to Florida state law, speech conducted in coordination with or at the direction of a designated foreign terrorist organization is excluded from the First Amendment.
DeSantis has likened members of the SJP organization as being part of or in support of the Hamas terrorist group. He said he's proud of his actions in regards to the group's deactivation across the Florida university system. A pro-Palestine protester has been arrested. He's charged in the death of a Jewish man who died after an altercation in California. NTD's Christina Corona has more on the story.
The Ventura County Sheriff's Office arrested 50-year-old Loay Al-Nalji Thursday in connection with the death of Paul Kessler following an altercation at dueling protests in Thousand Oaks. Al-Nalji, a computer science professor at Ventura County Community College, has been charged with involuntary manslaughter, and he is held on a $1 million bail. According to authorities, Kessler, 69, died as a result of injuries he sustained from a pro-Palestinian demonstration wielding a megaphone at the November 5th rally. Video footage shows Kessler lying on the ground suffering from a head wound. He was transported to a hospital where he died the next day. The arrest follows initial uncertainty about whether the incident constituted a hate crime. Officials said that though an arrest was made, anyone with information or who attended the event should still come forward and share video footage with the Ventura County Sheriff's Office. Christina Corona, NTD News, Los Angeles.
Yesterday on San Francisco's Bay Bridge, pro-Palestinian protesters brought traffic to a standstill for hours during rush hour.
80 people were arrested and 29 cars towed off the bridge. That's when President Biden attended the APEC summit nearby.
This follows a recent incident outside the DNC headquarters in Washington that turned violent. The protesters at certain points blocked the exits where at least 10 Democratic lawmakers, including top party leaders, were inside at the time. They had no way out and had to be evacuated.
The U.S. Capitol Police stated the demonstration in front of the DNC was unlawful and that protesters punched and pepper sprayed officers, injuring 6.
Representative Becca Balint became the first Jewish member of the House of Representatives to call for a ceasefire in Israel's war against Hamas.
Balint said she is grieving deeply for the Israelis killed in the initial attack and the hostages taken by Hamas, as well as the Palestinians killed and suffering in the chaos of violence.
Balint shared her thoughts in an op-ed published by VT Digger. She said what's needed now is an immediate break in violence to allow for a true negotiated ceasefire. According to The Hill, her published opinion makes her the first Jewish representative calling for a ceasefire.
The Congresswoman also wrote that a lasting ceasefire can only work if Hamas does not rule in Gaza. She emphasized that Hamas is a terrorist organization with a goal to annihilate the state of Israel.
Earlier this week, 24 House members sent a letter to the Biden administration calling for a ceasefire. Balint was not one of the lawmakers who signed that letter. We want to now turn to some lighter news. A young British boy has climbed to the top of the nearly 10,000-foot tall Mount Olympus at the age of 7.
He's the youngest boy from Britain to ever reach the peak of the famous mountain in Greece. Here's more on his incredible accomplishment.
At the age of 7, most of us were playing outside, riding our bikes, or watching movies and television. But not Frankie McMillan, who recently became the youngest British boy to scale Mount Olympus in Greece. His interest in mountain climbing dates back to age 3, when he began climbing with his mother, a professional mountain guide.
Well, I was always climbing mountains. First, it was a hobby for me, but then it turned into the job. But Frankie was always watching me walking up the mountains and started asking me to take him with me. So one of the days when he was free, I took Frankie up the mountain. I honestly thought that we would probably turn back halfway, but he just did it. He smashed it. He started very well, he finished very well, and then he asked for more.
His mom makes sure climbing doesn't become a difficult chore. She makes it a fun, bonding experience for the both of them.
We play games, we sing songs, we find treasure, so the day flows, and we just have just loads of fun. We spend time together, we make jokes, we make up songs, and all these things just let us get to know each other better and have fun as well and see the world.
He's a boy who doesn't lack motivation, according to his mom.
It's very rare for him not being driven to do something. It's very rare. I have to encourage him. Usually it's Frankie who will say, come on, let's go, let's do it.
And he's learning so much more than just mountain climbing skills.
It just gives him skills for life as well. So it's resilience, it's not giving up, it's staying strong, keep going no matter what life throws at you.
Frankie has been inspiring classmates and people worldwide, and he's far from finished. He plans to make even more challenging climbs, including Mount Everest. But for now, he's keeping his next adventure a secret.
Well, so we have a long list, and the next one's going to be big, but we don't want to give it away just yet, but we will soon.
That's awesome.
Mountain climbing's hard. Yeah, and especially because that air gets really thin when you get up there.
That's right, yeah. And anyway, that's incredible. All these tips online on how to get kids to hike with the parents, and meanwhile this guy is dragging his parents on hikes. That's awesome.
I mean, Mount Olympus, that's almost 2 miles straight up. That's a ways.
That's intense. I know I used to be really miserable on hikes. All right, but we have to wrap up our show right here. We'll keep you updated, though, with the latest information. Stay tuned for our News Today broadcast at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.